All righty. Am I there? All righty. I think I'm there. Alrighty, good to see you all. Welcome back after the snow day. Who did anything fun? Who went and played in the snow yesterday? Me too. I went snowshoeing with the kids. We snowshoed about a mile. It was great. It was fabulous. All right, so today, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, we're just proceeding along as if there was no snow day. We're just moving along with the material as planned. But the Tuesday, Thursday cohorts, I got to find a way to catch them up. And the way that's going to happen is we're recording this session today. Normally, this is not my recording session, but I'm recording it today, and this is the one that they're going to watch to catch up. All right? So when you answer good, okay? So you can help them out. So, and smile on camera. We're on camera. Actually, only that's on camera, I think. So, new material, new-ish material. I know you've covered some of this last semester, so I'm just trying to pull out some parts of it to apply to Ratio and to go back and redo or explore, because we really didn't have time, all of those metrics that I put up in our very first class that I said these are pretty important for marketing purposes. Things like break-even and cost volume profit analysis. We're going to go back and actually get through all of that this time. And some of that will be applicable to Ratio's marketing assignment, which we will then focus on in class on Monday. So on Monday, we will again spend all class in your teams working on that portion of the assignment with me circulating for assistance. You got the word about the project being extended. Yes, the due date is extended. We're all on board about that. That was the big problem we had to solve, getting out of sync with the snowstorm. That was the big issue. So now that we got that covered, let's move on. Okay, so price from a marketing perspective, but also as it relates to contribution margin, break-even, and cost volume profit analysis, and as it relates to our thinking about Ratio, okay? So price serves a variety of roles. We all understand from a macroeconomic level, price helps us allocate resources, right? The money is driven by pricing. In other words, consumers vote with their dollars. So it has macro implications. These slides are on D2L, by the way, if you want to work with them from there. So it has macro implications that way. The micro implications are to the consumer and the firm. Okay, and this little equation I had put up in my first lecture a couple weeks back now that identifies price as a measure of utility. Okay, so we have this bundle of benefits, the value of this bundle of benefits that we've created as our product that we're selling. And what we, the firm, get to keep is the price that the consumer pays us. That's our share of the total value of the bundle of benefits. And the consumer then exchanges the price and holds the remainder, the benefits retained by the consumer, which is the utility to the consumer. So there's the micro perspective on price. And then from the marketer's perspective, we have strategic implications of price. All right? Price is a key lever for us to move, to do things like affect product demand. Right? In theory, we all understand the economic theory of if we lower price, we should move more units, that inverse relationship, that elasticity and of demand relationship. We can also use it to send signals about the product, like a premium pricing for a premium product. Or we can use it to manage profitability in a variety of ways. Okay? So price has, for the marketer, significant implications, strategic implications for us. So there are many objectives that we would like to achieve through the pricing we choose. And these are not mutually exclusive. We could be pursuing more than one. Okay, so profitability, we could be managing for long-run or short-term profits, or we could be targeting an ROI or an ROA, same thing, which is one of the things I know you're looking at in your management portion of the Ratio assignment, okay? We could be using price to drive aggregate sales dollars or to drive or capture more market share in either dollars or units. We could be pushing a particular unit volume, okay? We could just be in survival mode where we're going to price, we simply have to move the merchandise because we need to convert inventory to cash. Or it could be a socially responsible objective, which is true of many not-for-profits, where we subsidize the price to the consumer by bringing in grant money and donation money so that we can deliver services at below market price because we're serving a market that otherwise couldn't access. All right, so we can achieve any or all of those things by the way we set pricing in the business. Okay? So having said that, let's get do we have our clickers out and turned on and tuned in and all that good stuff? Let me make sure I got my part turned on. All right, so thinking about the approaches we can take to price as discussed in your text, look at this question, discuss amongst yourselves, because we listened to this Ratio interview back at the beginning of the semester, and in there the founders discuss what they considered, what approaches they considered when they set the price of the IRO. So go ahead, you tell me. Talk amongst yourselves. It's okay to discuss. What did they decide, or what was driving their thinking? All right, let's take about 5 more seconds. Everybody get a choice in here, and then we'll talk. Okay, I got 126, 28, 30, going once, twice. All righty. All righty. Let's put this up. All right, so we're all over the board, you'll see. We're not sure at all what they discussed, okay? Okay, the right answer is B. Okay, yes, it was B. They discussed, okay, one, we got to consider cost. What's it cost us to produce this thing? And we got to at least price over the cost. And they said, as they looked around the market, okay, there are other providers of smart sprinkler systems, maybe not many, but we want to price slightly below them. So they took a competitive approach. So the two drivers for them were cost and competition. Okay? So, having said that, let's have a look again at some of the theory behind that. I'm just going to pull a little bit of the information out of the text. So, of the 4 approaches that we can consider, here's the cost-oriented approach. So this was one of the considerations. And we can look at 3 different ways to focus on cost. Now, you might imagine that there's pretty tight correlation here between cost and profit. Absolutely true. And cost is a very internally focused approach, as is profit. Okay, versus these two being more externally focused. But there's tight linkage among all of them. So depending on how I price, it may produce competitive response, and it'll certainly affect demand. So they're all tied together. So Ratio took cost as a consideration. Okay, and I've given you 3 examples here of standard markup pricing. So 3 possible cost approaches. Standard markup pricing is one. This is common in retail of all sorts. In grocery, I've given you Safeway as the example. It's done by product category. So we've got packaged grocery, we've got frozen, we've got dairy, we've got produce, we've got body care, okay, we've got meat and seafood. Each one of those departments has a margin, a target markup that is used to go from wholesale to retail pricing on the shelf, right? And it's different. Produce is different than dairy, than frozen, et cetera, okay? Cost plus, which is kind of what Ratio is doing. They're looking at their costs and saying, okay, I got to make at least that much. okay, involves markup. Okay, I mark up a certain percentage or a fixed fee. So I take my cost, I add on to it certain level of profitability that I expect to earn, and so thus cost plus. Very, very common in government contracting, also common in other kinds of contracting like home building. So if you hire a contractor to build a home, a unique home for you, it'll likely be done on a cost plus basis. And lastly, experience curve pricing. Now this one by its name is not perhaps quite so obvious, but I've given you a business example that maybe would guide us into, okay, what does that mean? Experience curve pricing. Anyone give it a shot for me? I'm sorry, you moved, you scratched your head, you looked at me, all at the same time. You know that means I'm coming your way. Go ahead. Tell me your first name. Andrew, what do you think, experience curve pricing? Yeah, okay, good guess, but no. Okay, so it's all right. I put you on the spot. Thank you for working with me. All right, I see another hand coming this way. Sarah? No. Kate, dang it. Kate, tell me, what do you think? Right, precisely. So this one, think about IKEA. The better I get at producing something, okay, the more I can shave my costs down, the more I can lower my price, the more expertise I develop. Okay, IKEA has unparalleled expertise in creating low-cost, decent quality furniture. And there's darn near nobody that can compete with them this way. And this tends to build on itself, right? The better they get at it, the more they sell, the more volume price discounts they get from their suppliers, the more they can take their prices down. Okay, so it tends to feed itself. So those are three cost-oriented approaches. Again, cost plus being kind of where Ratio is. And then we look at the other side, the externally focused, competition-oriented. So Ratio begins by saying, all right, I want to be a little, Adrian, please, question. So Adrian's question is on the experience curve pricing, as they get better and they sell more, is this just about reducing the cost to IKEA, or is that reflected in the price? It is the latter. It is also reflected in the price. So IKEA uses their cost, they use their expertise to drive down their cost and in turn lower their pricing, which increases volume. So they drive more volume to them. So for them, price is a lever to affect demand, but it's driven underneath by cost. Okay, so remember I said those four things up there are pretty tightly linked. Okay, so I can use one to affect the other. Good question, thank you. All right, now, from a competition-oriented approach, okay, there are three examples we can talk about here. Okay, customary pricing, where we have a situation where everything is kind of expected to be priced the same way. So if I'm going to be included in the presentation with everybody else at $1.50 a unit, that's where I have to be. Think of vending machines as an example. Okay, all the things in that particular vending machine are Coca-Cola products. They're all going to be priced at $1.50 or $2 or whatever vending machines go for these days. On the shelf in the grocery store, they might not be priced that way, but inside that vending machine, we're all at the same place. Okay, same would be true if it was candy in the vending machine. All right, then we have above, at, or below market pricing. All right, and Ratio in this case chose to be slightly below, was the position they took. I've given you Walmart as the ultimate example of below market pricing because they claim to be better than any of the competitors across anything they sell. Okay? And then lastly, loss leader as a competitive approach. And I put up a picture of a turkey there, a Thanksgiving turkey. Based on that name, who could give me a description of what loss leader pricing is about? Okay, now everybody is looking the other way. Don't call on me. Go ahead. Thank you. What's your first name? Matt.
They price it below their cost, so the consumers will buy different products.
Precisely. So Matt's answer is, I'm going to price my product, again, think Safeway, and Thanksgiving turkeys at 29 cents a pound. I'm making that up, okay? And it costs me more than that, but I know you're going to come in and not only buy your turkey, but your potatoes and your stuffing and your gravy and your cranberries. And so I get a full basket. So even though on that particular product I'm out of pocket, I'm profitable across the basket, the entire basket, okay? So, and that draws business away from the competition. That's vis-a-vis the competition. All right, questions about any of those? Okay, then. Let's get into now some of the ratios or metrics that are useful to us as marketers and using price in its relationship to volume and profit. So going back to contribution margin. Okay, we talked about this briefly in, I don't know how many lectures ago. We barely got to it at the very end. So let's go back and refresh. Contribution margin dollars, which is different from margin percentage, is the unit price minus the variable costs. And we want to think about this on a per unit basis. Percent margin, percent contribution margin, is the contribution margin dollars divided by the selling price. Okay, again, do it on a per unit basis, or you could do it in the aggregate. Okay, so this is the percentage. So now I can scale. If I convert from dollars per unit to percentage, now it's easy for me to scale. However many dollars of revenue I have times my contribution margin percentage is the aggregate profit I have. Question, please. Sure. No, I'm talking about unit variable cost. So the question is, tell me your first name again. Chloe. So Chloe's asking, can I say P minus UVC, unit variable cost? So yes, it would, so long as it's price per unit minus variable cost per unit will give me contribution margin per unit. Okay? All right, and, oh, I'm sorry, question, go ahead. The variable for the percentage. So it's contribution margin in dollars divided by price in dollars. Yes, gives me a percentage. And so now it doesn't matter how many dollars I have. I'll just apply that percentage, and that's my aggregate contribution margin that I have as the firm to go on to pay all the rest of my costs. Okay? And then percent markup. Okay, markup and margin are not the same thing, but they are related. Similar concepts. Okay? Margin is about the relationship between my contribution to profit and my price, or my contribution margin and my price. Markup is about contribution margin related to my variable costs. Okay, so it is how much does my product cost me? How much am I going to add to that cost in arriving at my selling price? Okay, so they both revolve around the contribution margin, one in relationship to price, one in relationship to cost. Okay, but markup is a very commonly used tool as we move product through the channel. And we talked a little bit about this the first time we went through it. We're going to go back through it again. Okay? So here's a graphic that shows you, this assumes it's a home appliance. Call it a toaster oven, call it a microwave, I don't know what it is. Okay? I got to move that from me as the manufacturer to the retailer who sells to the consumer. The selling price to the consumer is $100. I, the manufacturer, do not get $100. Me, GE or KitchenAid or whoever I am, don't get $100. Okay? Home Depot gets the $100, or Sears gets the $100. In between, so there's me, I sell it for $59 to a wholesaler who sells it to Home Depot, who sells it to you and me. And there's markup at each one of those levels. And there's percentage markup built into this particular example. Okay? And so you can see the different percentage markups at each level. And you could also calculate the contribution margin, dollars and percentage, at each of those levels, which we're going to do using Nantucket Nectars. Okay? So are we comfortable with this markup from manufacturer to wholesaler to retailer to you and me? Okay? Yes? Yeah, so Adrian's question is, why is the profit margin increasing from manufacturer to wholesaler to retailer when they're doing less work at each step of the way? I think each one of them would first of all argue that they're doing less work. They would all argue that they're doing work necessary to move the merchandise, one. This isn't always the way it is, too, so don't assume that that's the general case. Okay, my experience is that the wholesaler in the middle tends to have the skinniest margins. The manufacturer and the retailer tend to have the heftier margins. The retailers tend to have the heftier margins because they're the one that they're stuck with the merchandise if it doesn't sell, right? My sale is complete at the first 2 levels. I've moved the merchandise, I'm done. The retailer gets stuck with what doesn't sell, which means they have to put it on sale. They got to mark it down, which eats into their margin. So the retailer starts out with this nice going-in gross, what I call a going-in gross of 40%. By the time they move all the merchandise at whatever they got to mark it down to, they're at 35 or 30 net of everything, okay? So they tend to have the fattest margins. The retail end does. Does that make sense? All right. Okay, good questions. Thank you all. Now, if we're comfortable with this markup concept, and this is the way it worked at Fresh Produce, in my days at Fresh Produce, you remember, which is a women's apparel company. Let's do an example that's based on Fresh Produce. So that's an actual Fresh Produce t-shirt. It's a scoop neck screened cap sleeve tee, okay? Let's pretend that the cost of production, I haven't turned on the clicker yet. Let's just listen to this for a minute. Let's pretend that the cost of production is $8, because Fresh Produce would outsource. It didn't make its own dresses and shirts. It outsources these to either LA or offshore somewhere, China, let's say. And what comes with those production relationships is a BOM. Have you all talked about BOM yet? What's a BOM? A bill of materials, that's right. Okay? It's a bill of materials. So if I contract with somebody in LA to produce my t-shirts, they're going to put together a bill of materials for whatever it takes to create that t-shirt. It's going to include the fabric, the thread, the labor, sewing time, all that kind of thing, and give me a delivered price of $8. Okay? From there, I sell it, so I'm the wholesaler. I sell it. I mark it up 25% to the retailer. The retailer marks it up 50% to put it on the shelf and sell it to you and me. All right, so given that, what would be the price to you and me? Now I'll turn on the clicker. Discuss amongst yourselves. All right, let's take another 5 seconds. Everybody else choose an answer, and then we'll talk about it. All right, going once, twice. Let's see what we like. Beautiful. 98% of us like A, and A it is, okay? So good. So that tells me you're feeling comfortable with the markup from cost to markup, new cost to the next guy to markup, etc. So now, remember, I'm Fresh Produce here. I'm not getting $30. What am I getting when I sell this? Now, it costs me 10, and I sell it to the retailer for, yeah, I'm the wholesaler. Fresh Produce is, no, I don't produce. Remember, I contract out. I'm the wholesaler. I cost me 10, I sell it for 15, right? So what do I care? If the store, the retailer, sells it for 30 or 40 or what, I got my 15, I'm done. What do I care about the pricing all the way through the channel? Okay, I'm telling you, I care. Why do I care? Go ahead. Tell me your first name again. Sean.
Ultimately, the product itself, the ad, when you're selling it off to wholesaler, that they'll actually want to buy the product
Right. So I have to be concerned that the merchandise actually sells at the retail end, at the very end of the channel. Right? So I need to be concerned that it's priced competitively in the eyes of the consumer. I need to be sure that the pricing through the channel provides adequate profit margin to all the different partners in the channel. Otherwise, they're not carrying my stuff. Okay? If the pricing is too high and makes their margins too skinny, they won't carry my stuff. All right? And I absolutely want it to sell, Because otherwise, I got problems on the back end. I got inventory backing up, not moving. Okay, and now I've got cash tied up in inventory that's not moving the way I need it to move. Okay, so so the pricing issue works all the way through the channel. And I, as the fresh produce t-shirt producer, not producer, designer, have to make sure the pricing fits all the way through the channel. All right. All right, so let's practice a little. The rest of the class is going to be applying this against, not ratio, we're going to do that on Monday. Against, we're going to go back and use Nantucket nectars, okay? So we had put this example up at that class, our first class, way back when, and we barely got through the first piece. So let's review, okay? Here's our information. I got convenience store buys it from Nantucket Nectars at $181, sells it to the customer at $279, okay? What's the contribution? We're going to walk through the whole thing. Contribution margin, percent margin, so contribution margin, dollars, percent contribution margin, and percent markup. Okay, and let's do it all the way through the channel. The data that I just gave you was the very last part of the channel there, the consumer piece. Okay, let's start just the first level. Nantucket Nectars, there's its cost, its variable costs, okay, and its selling price. Talk amongst yourselves. Tell me what's the percentage margin and the percentage markup for just that first step. Go ahead, discuss. Okay, who has an answer that can shout it out for me or raise their hand? I'll come round. Who's got an answer? Someone help me out. Oh, I saw your arms go up. I know you were just stretching, but you know how it goes. Oh, you don't have an answer. Dang, how about you? Go ahead. No. Okay, so we're not starting at 2.79 because Nantucket Nectars does not get 2.79. Okay, so to tell me your first name again? Diego. So Diego said, well, don't I just divide by 2.79? No. Nantucket Nectars does not get 279. 7-Eleven gets 279. So this business of understanding where I am in the channel matters, and it matters in our ratio example. Chloe. Go to the next slide. We're on the next slide. Okay, so we're working with this data. Got it? Like, where are those numbers? Okay, got it. Go ahead. Question.
Is it 67.4?
All right. Oops. Dang it, I touched the wrong thing. Okay. There it is. 67.4 is my markup. Tell me your first name. Keegan. Thank you, Keegan. All right. So I got a 40% margin. I got a 67% markup. Okay, mathematically, markup is always going to be greater than margin. Okay? And mathematically, markup could be greater than 100. Margin can never be. Okay? And without getting into the algebra behind that, you might just want to make a note to that effect. Okay? Okay, markup is always going to be greater than margin because the denominator is a smaller number. And it could be greater than 100, whereas margin can never be greater than 100. Okay? All right. Now, before we go to the next level, let me ask you this. Variable costs. If I have a physical product, like a bottle of juice, what is likely to be my single highest variable cost? I see a hand in the back, though. Do you have a question? Yes. So the question is, it's price minus variable cost, so is the price the MSRP, the $279? Only if I'm looking at it from 7-Eleven's perspective. That is not the price that goes to Nantucket Nectars. Correct. All right, so at each level I have different selling price, which produces different cost at the next level, up or down the chain, however you want to think about it. Tell me your first name? Chris, thank you. All right, now, if I have a physical product like a bottle of juice, what is likely to be my single largest variable cost? Materials, that's right, materials. which become finished goods. I go from raw materials to WIP to finished goods, right? And I'm also adding some other things in there. This is accounting stuff that you guys are going to get to if you haven't gotten to already, how I accumulate cost into inventory. So I have raw materials, which become WIP, and they become WIP by adding labor and overhead. All right, and then they become finished goods. What do we call that finished goods thing? What is my single largest variable cost? Adrian, you're making eye contact. Nope. Okay. Come on, what is that? What's the accounting term for that? Because everybody needs to know it, even if it is an accounting term. Cost of goods sold. Right? COGS. COGS are the bundle of costs that it took to make the bottle of juice. All right, so COGS are often my single largest variable cost. But I could have other variable costs. What other variable costs might there be beyond COGS? Administration costs, typically not counted as part of as variable costs. One, admin costs tend to be more fixed. There can be some that are variable, though. One specifically marketing related. Was it you that said? Tell me your first name again. Nicholas. I'm still working on the names. Okay. So there is an admin cost, a selling cost, though, that would be variable cost if we had it in this case. What might that be? It's a marketing related cost that would be variable. For every unit I sell, I incur this cost. Cost of goods sold, for sure. For every bottle of juice I sell, cost of goods sold tracks along with the sale. What else might there be? A selling cost. Shipping could be one. Yep. What else? I heard another. Elba, was that you? I'm sorry? Marginal cost. Marginal cost has to do with incremental. So no, not marginal cost. What about a commission? Suppose I had a sales force in place that I paid a commission. So I create a marketing incentive for them to move the merchandise. Adrian. Legal disputes. I wouldn't call that variable. It wouldn't be attached to everyone I sell. But something not quite the same. Warranty costs. Suppose this were a product that had warranty, where I knew a certain percentage were coming back and I had repair costs. Warranty costs are a variable cost, right? That's so. Because we calculate them per unit. Yes, what else? Shelving costs. You mean like slotting fees? Or warehousing costs? On the shelf. Slotting fees. Those are more fixed than variable. They're not a function of the number of units I move. They're a function of how much shelf space I get to hold. So those are more fixed than variable, okay? Fixed costs. All right, but it's important to distinguish among them. All right, now let's go to the next level. Okay, what are the margin and markup for the distributor? As I move my way through the channel, same math. Now that we're comfortable with the math and we're clear that the selling price is not yet $279, we're not at that place. What's the margin and markup there? Discuss amongst yourselves. All righty, anybody have an answer they want to put forth? What's the answer for the margin and the markup? Amberly. Okay, 15% approximately for the margin, 17.5, 18 for the markup. Okay, my cost is $1.54. I'm selling it at $1.81. I get a really skinny profit in there, divided by my $1.81 selling price to get my margin, or my $1.54 cost to get my markup. Now that I've said that, are you with me? And oh, you were way ahead of me. What's the answer to the next one? We'll skip right there. 35% you said? Nope, you did it right. 35 and 54. Same approach, same formula, if you will, but I am not encouraging you to memorize formulas. I think this is not in your best interest so much as I want you to think through the three pieces we're working with here. Selling price, variable costs, and contribution margin. Okay? And think about the relationship between contribution margin to price, contribution margin to cost. All right. Now, we didn't get to this last time, break-even analysis. I know you've covered it elsewhere. Let's briefly look at it. So in break-even, I am looking at how many units do I have to sell in order to cover my fixed costs, okay? So here's my total revenue, okay? Dollars on the left, unit volume on the bottom. Revenue is simply total quantity moved times price. We know this already. And then I have fixed costs, which I have to pay if I don't sell a single thing. So my costs never get any lower than those fixed costs. On top of that, I have variable costs, like cost of goods sold and packaging and the things we just discussed. So those I incur with each sale to become total costs. So my total cost line starts at my fixed cost and moves up from there by adding my variable cost to it. Okay? So at this point, that number of units is where my aggregate contribution margin covers my fixed cost, my total cost, rather. All right? So think of it as, and here's the way I think of it, and maybe it's because I've spent most of my life in retail. If my contribution margin is 50 cents a unit, how many times do I have to throw 50 cents into the cash register to accumulate to cover my fixed cost? If they were $10,000, let's say. I literally think of it that way. How many times do I got to throw, ring up the register, put the money in the bank, put the money in the register, however you want to think about it. Every time I sell a bottle of juice, Nantucket Nectar's made 62 cents. How many times do I got to throw 62 cents into the cash register to accumulate to cover my fixed cost? That's my break even, okay? And anything above that is profit. Okay? Now, if I haven't said it before in class, let me say it now. We are not in business to break even, okay? That's the least we got to do. We are in business to generate a profit. So break even is just useful for us knowing the point at which below that I'm in real trouble. Okay? All right, so break even analysis. Profit equals number of units sold times contribution margin in dollars, that's price minus variable costs, minus my fixed costs. Okay? Rearranged then at what quantity, how many units do I got to move, do I got to sell in order to break even? Well, I set profit equal to 0. Again, we're not really in business for profit to be 0. And solve for quantity, which means fixed cost, just like I said it, divided by contribution margin dollars per unit. How many times do I have to throw $62 into the register to cover till it adds up to my fixed cost? And then I've broken even. Anything beyond that, I'm making money. Does that make sense? Okay. We can also look at it, though, as what aggregate sales volume do I have to do to break even? Okay, not how many units do I got to move, but what my aggregate sales have to be at the contribution margin of my product. The contribution margin percentage, because now I'm scaling. Now I'm using a percentage to scale. So, same thing, fixed cost is what I got to cover. I divide it by my contribution margin percentage. This will gross up to the sales that aggregate sales I need to have. And lastly, if I'm thinking about this in terms of, I think the market is only going to accept 1 million units. That's as many as I think I can move. And given what it costs me, plus my fixed cost, at what price do I have to be in order to break even? Now, this one's a little less intuitive, I think, than the first two. But think about it as, I have my fixed costs I got to cover. I think I can sell 1 million units. Okay, fixed cost divided by 1 million units. That's the portion of my price that covers my fixed cost. I add to that my variable cost, because that goes with each of my units. The two things together give me the selling price to break even. All right. Is that all review for you guys? Have you done this anywhere yet? Chloe? This is a further, so the question, Chloe's question is, that piece in brackets in the first line where it says price minus variable cost equal contribution margin, that's me restating price minus variable cost here, so you could substitute in contribution margin for that. Okay? All right. So now let's practice. Pretend we're Nantucket Nectars. I'm using the same numbers from that previous chart. Okay? 92 cents is my cost. My selling price is $1.54. I have $1 million in annual fixed operating expenses, operating costs. How many units to break even? Talk amongst yourselves. Use something that looks like a calculator, your phone, an Excel spreadsheet, a pencil and paper. That'll work too. That's very old school. I like it. Somebody shout out an answer when you have one. Anybody have a number yet? How many units, how many bottles of juice do I got to sell just to break even on my $1 million per year in fixed operating expenses? Fixed operating costs, fixed operating expenses, same thing. Okay? These are fixed operating costs. How many units do I got to move? Someone help me out here. 1.612 million, that's right. Oh, look at this. Well, you see the answer there, but you can also do that over there. All right, there it is, $1.6 million and change. Does everybody understand how we got there? If you don't, please articulate a question for me so I can help clarify. Okay? Let's pretend that I have price constraints. I don't think I can sell it at $1.54. I think I can only sell it at $1.40 because I've got other competitive juice products that are moving into that same channel. I gotta keep that in mind. Therefore, I can't take the price up. It's going to squeeze the profit margin to the distributor to the point where the distributor doesn't want to carry my juice. So if I can only sell it for $1.40, how many do I now have to move? Hand, question, or answer? Go ahead. That's right, $2,083,000. Okay, $2 million and change. So at a lower price, of course, I got to sell more because now my profit margin is lower. I'm throwing less money into the register with every bottle I sell. It takes me more units to cover my fixed cost. So as a marketer, what's the next question I'm asking myself? I can only price it at $1.40. It says I got to sell $2 million and change, almost $2.1 million. What am I asking myself next as a marketer? It's not on the screen up there. I'm asking you. What's the next thing I'm worrying about? Adrian? Well, profit, I'm making some profit. If I sell 2 million units, I break even. I got to sell more than that, more than the $2,083,000 to make a profit. So I'm thinking to myself, what? Go ahead, please. Okay, where can I sell it? I'm going to rephrase a little bit. Tell me your first name. Sabrina. So Sabrina says, where am I going to get how am I going to push these 2 million units? Where can I go? Can I move 2,083,000 and more? Is there demand in the market for that? Okay, so I have to be clear that I can move that many units, right? That I really can push that off the shelf, okay? Because I'm a push from this end, okay? Getting it onto the shelf. The pull is the other side on the retail end where I help the retailer create demand with advertising and promotional messaging. Right now, this is all push, okay? Adrian. So when I'm getting the cost, this is from the manufacturer. That's right. So that 92 cents, that would be my delivered in cost from whoever is bottling the juice for me. So Adrian asks, would I buy that 2 million units in at that cost at 92 cents, or would I first assess the market to see can I sell it? I'd want to first assess the market and believe that I could move it, because otherwise I'm out of pocket almost a couple $1 million without knowing that I can sell it. right? So I would need to assess the market first and then commit to the orders. You mean the distributors? Like if a distributor says, yeah, I'll take 1 million units, and then they come back and say, sorry, changed my mind. I don't know that you can force them to take it. Sometimes there are contracts where there are fixed contracts where you might be able to force it. Not typically with this kind of stuff, more with commodities, okay? So no, there are no guarantees necessarily. All right, so continuing on. Now let's test some alternatives, okay? What is called CVP analysis, so the relationship between cost and volume and profit. Oh my goodness, we're running out of time. So, pretend that my fixed costs are $1 million, and unit selling price is still $1.54, and my break-even volume is $1.6 million. We just talked about that. Now, what if I could reduce my fixed cost by 10%? Then what? How many units do I have to move? Fewer. That's right. I can move fewer units because now my profit margin has increased, right? So I only have to move $1.045 million. What if I reduce variable cost by 10%? Okay. Well, then I only have to move $1.041 million. If I increase price, if I thought I had that kind of flexibility, then I only have to move $1.3 million, assuming the market will take the increased price. Okay. And go ahead, question. This is quantity, except for the very last one. What would my retail price have to be if I thought I could only sell 1.2 million units? Okay? This one's, again, not as intuitive as the others. Anybody have an answer for that? And then we have like 1 minute. Okay, it's $1.75 because I take my $1 million, I divide it by my 1.2 million. That gives me my fixed cost per unit plus my variable cost of 92 cents per unit gets me to $1.75. Okay? So, and then I'm asking myself, okay, is the market going to bear $1.75? Can I really sell it for $1.75 if I only thought I could sell $1.2 million at my fixed cost? Now, we'll skip this. I got to think about whether I want to skip this one or go to the next one. Suppose Nantucket Nectars wants to expand to a new market. This is kind of like what we're doing with Raccio. All right? It wants to go to New York from New England. It thinks it can sell an additional 1 million units at $1.54 at a cost of 92. It's going to incur incremental fixed cost of $500,000. Should it pursue the new market segment or not? And tell me why. And this is kind of what we're doing in Raccio, except I haven't given you the incremental fixed cost of the sales force.